The ruins were silent. Dust floated in the cold air, and broken towers leaned like dead trees. A lone human walked through the empty streets, his boots pressing on the cracked stone. His name was Daniel, an explorer from Earth. He had come to search for life, for anyone still alive after the Great War that had burned this alien world. Every sound echoed loudly. The wind howled through shattered windows, and sometimes Daniel thought he could hear voices, but when he turned, there was nothing. He carried a small light in his hand, its beam cutting through the dark alleys. His heart was steady, but his mind stayed alert. He knew enemies could still hide here then. He froze. Someone was watching him from behind the broken wall of a ruined building. Two glowing eyes stared back. They were not human eyes. They were larger, brighter, almost silver in the darkness. Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon, but did not raise it. Instead, he spoke softly. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. His voice was calm, steady, carrying across the silence. The figure moved. A small shadow stepped out into the dim light. It was a girlie, thin, with pale skin that shimmered faintly under the dust-covered sky. Her hair was long, dark, tangled. From days of hiding, her clothes were torn, her hands trembling. She was not human. She was alien. For a moment, Daniel felt time stop. She looked weak, almost broken, but her eyes held something sharp fear mixed with sadness. When Daniel took one slow step toward her, she suddenly backed away. Her body shook as she whispered in a soft, trembling voice, "Stay back. Your kind is too pure for me." Her words cut through the air like a blade. Daniel's breath caught in his chest. He had expected fear, maybe anger, but purity? Why would a human's presence frighten her like that? He lowered his weapon and raised his empty hand to show peace. "I'm not your enemy," he said gently. "I only want to help." The girl's eyes narrowed. She shook her head quickly. "No, no, you can't. If they see me with you, if they know." She stopped herself, clutching her arms tightly, as if protecting a secret. Daniel stepped closer. He could see she was close to running. Her body was tense, like a cornered animal. "I don't know who you're afraid of," Daniel said softly, "but I'm not leaving you here alone." The girl's lips trembled. For a second, her silver eyes softened, but then fear returned. She turned her head sharply, scanning the shadows as if something was hunting her. Her voice dropped to a whisper, barely carried by the wind. "They're always watching. They know I spoke to you before. If they find me with a human again, they'll kill me, and you." Daniel's chest tightened. He realized this was not a normal meeting. This girl was running from something dangerous, something that feared humans. The silence grew heavy. Only the moaning wind filled the space between them. Daniel's instincts told him to retreat, to leave her before danger came. But his heart told him otherwise. He had seen suffering before. He had seen whole worlds broken. And now, here was one soul, fragile and alone, believing that his kind was too pure for her to touch. "Tell me your name," Daniel said firmly. His voice echoing through the ruined street. The girl blinked, surprised. For the first time, her eyes showed something else besides fear-confusion. My name," she asked. "Yes," Daniel said, his voice steady. "If I know your name, then I'll know you're real. And I don't leave real people behind." Lips parted, but no sound came. She looked away, as if fighting herself. Then, faintly, she whispered, "Leora." Daniel smiled slightly, though his eyes stayed sharp. "Leora," he repeated. "You don't have to run from me." But she stepped back again, her silver eyes shining in the dark. "You don't understand," she said, her voice cracking. "Humans carry light. My people fear it. To them, you are dangerous. Too pure. If you stay near me, they'll destroy us both." Before Daniel could answer, a deep sound echoed in the distance, a low metallic hum rising through the ruins. Leora's face went pale. She turned sharply toward the noise, her body shaking. "They're coming," she whispered. Daniel looked into the dark streets, gripping his weapon. His pulse quickened, but his mind sharpened. He knew he was no longer searching the ruins for survivors. He had already found one. And now? He had to decide whether to fight for her or let her vanish into the shadows forever. Leora's eyes locked on his one last time, full of fear and something else he couldn't name. Then she whispered again, almost like a plea, "Your soul shines too bright. I can't stay." And with that, she darted into the shadows, leaving Daniel standing alone in the ruins as the distant hum grew louder, closer, and far more dangerous. The hunt had begun. Daniel stood frozen as the strange hum grew louder through the ruins. The sound was not natural. It was heavy, mechanical, and steady, like the heartbeat of a giant machine. He gripped his weapon tightly, scanning the shadows, but his mind kept replaying the alien girl's words. "Your soul shines too bright." Why would purity frighten her? Why would light be something to run from? His eyes darted to the place where she had disappeared. The dust still swirled where her small feet had kicked it up in her escape. She was gone, but Daniel knew he could not leave her. He had come too far, and something about her words had tied a knot deep inside his chest. He followed. The ruined city was a maze. Broken walls leaned over cracked streets, and strange symbols carved by alien hands were half buried in rubble. The hum grew closer, sharper, like metal claws scraping stone. Daniel pressed himself against a wall, peering around the corner. 3 figures appeared in the distance. They were not human. Tall, armored in dark suits that seemed to shimmer like liquid shadow, they moved with terrifying precision. Their helmets had no eyes, only smooth surfaces, glowing faintly red. Each one carried a long, staff-like weapon that crackled with energy. "Hunters." Daniel's single quotes as pulse raced. He had no doubt they were searching for her. For Leora, he ducked back, staying silent. The hunters passed, scanning the ruins, their steps echoing like drums of war. When their sound faded, Daniel moved again, quick but careful. Following the faint footprints in the dust, at last, he found her. She was crouched behind a collapsed wall, her small body trembling, her silver eyes wide with fear. When she saw Daniel, she shook her head wildly, pressing a finger to her lips. "You shouldn't have followed me," she whispered harshly. "They'll kill you too." Daniel crouched beside her, his voice calm but firm. "I won't leave you." Her lips trembled. For a moment, it looked like she wanted to argue, but then her eyes filled with something like sorrow. "You don't understand, my people. They don't see you as you are. They see the light in you, and it burns them. They think it will destroy everything they know. That's why they fear you. That's why they fear me." Daniel frowned, his mind racing. "Fear you? Why you?" Her voice cracked. "Because I spoke to a human once before. Just words, only words. And they said I was tainted. They said the human light had touched me. They hunted me, cast me out, and called me impure." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to reach out to comfort her, but she pulled back sharply, pressing herself against the wall. "Don't," she whispered. "If you touch me, it will be worse. If they see us together, there will be no escape." Her fear was real, raw, and sharp. But Daniel saw something else, to loneliness. She had been running for so long that she no longer believed anyone could stand beside her. The humming returned, closer now. The hunters were sweeping the ruins. Their metallic voices carried through the air, low and cold, speaking in a language Daniel could not understand. Leora's body shook violently. She pressed her hands over her ears, her breath coming fast and shallow. Daniel leaned close, his voice barely above a whisper. "Look at me," he said firmly. She turned her eyes toward him, silver and wet with tears. "You're not alone anymore," Daniel said. "Do you hear me?" "Not anymore." Her lips parted. But no sound came. Something flickered in her gaze, something fragile and new hope. But almost instantly, she crushed it down, shaking her head again. "You don't know what they'll do to you," she said. "They don't forgive. They don't. Forget, to them, a human is poison, and anyone who stands near one must be erased." The sound of footsteps slammed against the broken street nearby. Daniel's heart pounded. He glanced over the wall. The hunters were close, scanning every corner, their weapons glowing brighter. They would find them. "Come," Daniel whispered, grabbing her hand before she could pull away. "We have to move." Her body went rigid at his touch, but he held firm, guiding her through a narrow gap between fallen stones. She trembled, her lips moving in silent protest, but she followed. The two ran through the ruins, ducking into shadows, slipping between shattered walls as the hunters closed in. The city itself seemed alive with menace, every stone echoing their breaths. Every corner a trap. At last, they slipped into a half-buried chamber. The air was damp, heavy with dust. Ancient carvings glowed faintly on the walls, their meanings long lost. Daniel pulled Leora inside, pressing a finger to his lips. The hunters' footsteps thundered past above them. Their voices echoed like steel grinding on stone. Then, slowly, the hum faded again. Leora collapsed to the ground, clutching, her knees shaking all over. Daniel knelt beside her, breathing hard but steady. She whispered, her voice breaking. "Why? Why do you risk yourself for me? You don't even know me." Daniel looked at her firmly. "I don't have to know you. You're alive. And no one deserves to be hunted for speaking the truth." Her eyes widened, tears slipping down her cheeks. She turned her face away, ashamed. "You don't understand. My world doesn't work like yours. Here, purity is not a gift. It is a curse." Daniel leaned closer, his voice low and unshakable. "Then let me be cursed with you, because I will not walk away." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of his words. Leora did not move, did not speak, but for the first time. She did not pull away from him. Outside, the hunter's hum returned, searching again. The danger was not over. But in that hidden chamber, something had shifted. Fear still lived in her eyes, but so did something else, something fragile. Like the first spark of trust, the chamber was silent, except for Leora's shallow breathing and the faint hum of the hunters above. Dust rained down from cracks in the stone ceiling as their heavy steps shook the ground. Daniel kept his weapon ready, his eyes on the shadows. But his thoughts were fixed on the girl beside him. She hugged her knees tightly, her thin frame trembling. Her silver eyes were wide, darting to every sound. She looked like a cornered animal, ready to run at the first chance. Finally, when the noise outside faded, Daniel spoke softly. "Leora," he said, careful not to frighten her. "I need to know the truth. Why are they hunting you? What did you mean when you said humans are too pure?" Her lips parted, but she said nothing. Instead, she stared at the glowing carvings on the chamber wall. Strange alien symbols lit up, faintly, almost alive in the dark. For a long moment, she seemed lost in them, as if gathering courage at last. Her voice broke the silence. "My people live in fear of the light," she whispered. "Not sunlight, not fire. The light inside. Others, the kind that shines from humans." They say your kind is dangerous because your soul carries too much purity. It exposes things they want hidden. Daniel frowned, confused but intrigued. Exposes what? Her voice cracked. The lies, the cruelty, the darkness they rule with. When humans came to our world, just their presence made people question everything. Question the chains, the punishments, the silence we were forced to keep. My people saw the way you lived with hope, with kindness, with love, and it terrified the rulers. Daniel's jaw tightened. He had seen this before on other worlds' tyrants, who feared change, who crushed hope to keep their power. Leora's eyes shimmered with tears as she continued. When I was younger, I met a human. He was kind to me. He gave me food when I was starving. He smiled at me. I'd never seen a smile before, not a real one. I told my people about it, and do you know what they said? Her voice dropped too. A trembling whisper. They said I was tainted. They said the human light had infected me. And then, they marked me, hunted me, threw me out. From that day, I was no longer one of them. I was a shadow. Daniel's chest ached. He could see the pain etched into her face. The years of running and hiding. You were punished, he said softly, for being shown kindness. She nodded slowly, her tears slipping down her cheeks. To them, kindness is a poison, because it makes others wonder why they don't have it too. That's why they fear you. That's why they hate you. Humans remind us of everything we lost. For a moment, silence filled the chamber again. The truth was heavy, pressing down on both of them. Then Daniel spoke firmly, his voice carrying strength. You are not tainted. You are not impure. You were shown kindness because you deserved it, and you deserve it still. Leora looked at him sharply, almost angry. You don't understand. To my people, those words are death. Anyone who even listens to them is destroyed. If they see me with you, if they believe I still carry the human light, they will kill us both without mercy. Daniel leaned closer, his eyes burning with determination. Then let them try. Her breath caught. She stared at him, speechless, her lips trembling. No one had ever said words like that to her. No one had ever chosen to stand beside her instead of turning away. Before she could answer, the ground shook violently. Dust rained down again. The hunters were back closer this time. Their metallic hum echoed through the underground tunnels. Rattling the chamber walls, Leora jumped to her feet, panic in her eyes. They found us, she whispered. Daniel rose with her weapon ready. Then we move, but you stay with me. She hesitated, fear locking her in place. Her voice cracked. If I stay, you'll die because of me. He looked her in the eyes, unshaken. If I leave you, I'll die inside, so I'd rather fight. For a moment, her breath stopped. Then, slowly, something shifted in her gaze. The fear was still there, but behind it was a spark. A tiny flicker of belief. Daniel turned toward the tunnel, listening to the approaching hum. He knew they didn't have much time, but he also knew one thing with certainty. Now Leora was not just a survivor. She was a symbol, proof of what humanity could awaken, even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. He held out his hand to her. Come. Her silver eyes lingered on his hand, trembling with doubt. But finally, with slow, shaking fingers, she placed her hand in his for the first time. She did not pull away. The hunter's glow appeared in the distance, red lights cutting through the dark. The air crackled with the energy of their weapons. Leora whispered, her voice barely a breath. Your soul shines too bright, and I can't hide in its light anymore. Daniel tightened his grip on her hand. Then, don't hide. Let it guide you. And together, they stepped into the darkness of the tunnels. The hunters closing in, the danger only beginning. The tunnels shook with every step of the hunters. Their heavy boots pounded like drums, echoing through the ruins. Red lights flashed across the walls, cutting through the darkness. Daniel pulled Leora by the hand, his weapon ready, his heart pounding like thunder. Leora's breaths came fast and sharp. She kept glancing back, her silver eyes wide with terror. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They never stop." "Then we don't stop either," Daniel answered firmly. His voice was calm, but inside he knew the danger was real. These hunters were not scouts. They were killers, sent to erase anyone touched by the so-called human light. The tunnel split. Ahead, one path leading upward, the other plunging deeper underground. Daniel hesitated for a moment. The hum of the hunters grew louder behind them. He made his choice. "This way," he said, pulling her upward. They raced through broken stone steps, slipping past collapsed beams and piles of rubble. Dust filled the air, choking them, but Daniel pushed forward. Leora stumbled, nearly falling. But Daniel caught her arm and pulled her close. The sound of metal struck the walls sharp and violent. A blast of red energy scorched the stone near their heads. The hunters had found them. "Run!" Daniel shouted. The two sprinted through the ruins as more blasts tore through the air, lighting the darkness in flashes of red. Leora's thin legs struggled to keep up, but she refused to let go of his hand. Fear pushed her forward, but something else too, his strength, his refusal to abandon her. They reached the surface again, bursting into the ruined streets. The night sky above was filled with smoke and stars, a haunting mix of beauty and death. The hunters emerged from the tunnel behind them, their glowing red eyes locking onto their targets. Daniel fired his weapon. Blue light cracked through the air, striking one of the hunters in the chest. The creature staggered, but did not fall. Its armor absorbed most of the blast, leaving only a glowing scar across the black suit. "They're too strong," Leora cried, pulling him toward another street. Daniel fired again, forcing the hunters to scatter, buying a few seconds of space. He turned and ran beside her, his eyes scanning for cover. "Where can we go?" he asked. Her voice trembled, but she pointed toward the east. "There's an old temple ahead. It has tunnels beneath it, hidden ones. My people used them long ago before they were sealed. Maybe they'll still be open." "Then lead the way," Daniel said. They dashed through the ruins, the hunters close behind. Red beams burned the air around them, blasting stone into dust. The streets became a deadly maze, every corner alive with danger. Daniel's breath burned in his chest, but he kept moving, kept protecting the girl beside him. The temple appeared at last. Half collapsed, its tall pillars cracked but still reaching toward the sky. Strange carvings glowed faintly on its surface, pulsing like living veins of light. They rushed inside, their footsteps echoing across the vast stone floor. Shadows stretched across the walls, and the silence felt heavy, as if the temple itself was holding its breath. "Where are the tunnels?" Daniel asked quickly. Leora ran to the far side, her fingers tracing the carvings on the wall. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "Here, there used to be an entrance here." Daniel scanned the room, his weapon ready. The hunters. Red glow flickered outside the temple, getting closer. "Hurry," he urged. Her hands pressed against the carvings, and with a low grinding sound, part of the wall shifted. A hidden door opened, revealing a narrow passage leading into the earth. Daniel's eyes sharpened. "Go." Leora stepped inside, but before Daniel could follow, a blast of energy struck the ground near his feet, throwing him back. The hunters had entered the temple. Their tall forms filled the doorway, weapons glowing with deadly light. Leora screamed, "Daniel!" He rolled to his feet, firing quickly. Blue light clashed against red, filling the temple with violent flashes. The hunters moved forward, unshaken, their armor deflecting most of his shots. "Go!" Daniel shouted, his voice echoing through the temple. "Find the tunnel. Keep running." But Leora shook her head, tears in her eyes. "Not without you." He fired again, his weapon overheating in his hands. The hunters advanced, their red eyes glowing brighter. Daniel's body burned with exhaustion, but his mind was clear. He could not let them take her. With one final shot, he blasted a crack in the ceiling. Stone rained down, filling the temple with dust and rubble. Up. The hunters staggered, their vision blocked for a moment. "Now?" Daniel shouted. Lior rushed forward, grabbing his arm, pulling him into the hidden passage. The wall closed behind them with a heavy thud, sealing the hunters outside for now. The tunnel was dark and narrow, the air damp and cold. Leora clung to Daniel's arm, her body trembling, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "They'll find another way," she whispered. "They never give up." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Then we'll stay ahead of them. We'll make them chase us as long as it takes. But they won't take you, not while I'm here." For a moment, her eyes softened. She looked at him as if seeing something she had never believed possible, someone willing to fight for her. Not because of duty, but because he chose to. Behind them, the muffled sound of the hunters echoed again. The chase was far from over. But as they pressed deeper into the tunnels, side by side, something stronger than fear began to grow between them. Something even the hunters could not destroy. The tunnels stretched long and dark, the air heavy with damp stone and the faint echo of dripping water. Daniel led the way, his light cutting through the shadows. Leora walked close behind him, her thin fingers clutching his sleeve, as if letting go would mean being swallowed by the dark. The silence between them was thick, broken only by their footsteps. Finally, Daniel slowed, glancing back at her. Her silver eyes glowed faintly, tired but alert, always darting behind them as if expecting hunters to appear at any moment. "You should rest," Daniel said softly. "You've been running too long." Leora shook her head quickly, fear etched into her face. "If we stop, they'll find us. They always find me." Daniel gave her a steady look. "Then we'll rest and still keep moving. Fear can't guide every step, Leora. If it does, you'll collapse before they even catch us." Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. She wanted to argue, yet a small part of her knew he was right. She had spent years running, never pausing, never breathing. Always hunted, always alone. Daniel spotted a small chamber branching from the tunnel. He stepped inside carefully, checking the shadows, scanning for danger. The space was empty, just broken stone and dust. "Here," he said. "We'll stop here for a while." Leora hesitated in the doorway, her body tense, ready to run. Daniel sat down on a stone block, laying his weapon across his lap. He looked up at her calmly. "You're safe here, with me." She slowly stepped inside, her movements hesitant, like a wild creature, unsure of a trap. She sat on the far side of the chamber, hugging her knees. Her silver eyes never left him. Daniel spoke quietly, his tone gentle. "You said they fear human light, that it exposes their lies. Do you know why you feel that way about me?" Her voice was faint, almost breaking. "No." "Because when you look at me, I feel like I exist, like I'm more than just a shadow. No one ever looked at me like that before." Daniel's chest tightened. He had seen suffering on many worlds, but her pain was different. It was not just hunger or loss, it was the slow breaking of a soul, piece by piece, until only fear remained. And yet, she was still here, still fighting to survive. He leaned forward slightly. "That's because you are more, Leora. You've been told lies for so long that you've started to believe them. But I see the truth. Her eyes widened, shimmering with tears. The truth, a truth. That you're strong, Daniel said firmly. You've survived what no one should have to. You've carried the weight of fear, and you're still standing. That is strength. And that is why I will not let them take you. Her lips parted, but she looked away quickly, hiding her tears. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "You'll die because of me." Daniel shook his head. No, if I walk away, then I'll lose the part of me that matters most. Protecting life, protecting hope, that's what it means to be human. Leora's breath caught in her chest. She turned back to him, staring as if seeing him for the first time. Her fear was still there, but beneath it, something else flickered. A fragile thread of trust. The silence stretched again, softer this time. Leora slowly lowered her knees, her body relaxing just a little. For the first time, she did not sit pressed against the wall like a prisoner. She shifted closer, though still, keeping distance between them. Daniel noticed the change, but said nothing. He simply gave her a small nod, as if to say he understood. A faint hum broke the quiet, carried through the tunnels like a ghostly heartbeat. Leora's body stiffened instantly, fear flooding her eyes again. They're still searching, she whispered. They won't stop until I'm gone. Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon, his jaw set with determination. Then let them search. Every moment they chase us is a moment we live. And the longer we live, the more chance we have to turn the hunt against them. She stared at him, stunned by his calmness. You speak as if you can fight them all. He met her gaze steadily. Maybe I can't fight them all, but I can fight for you. That's enough. Her silver eyes softened, shimmering with something fragile, something almost like hope. She lowered her voice, trembling as she spoke. Why fight for me when I am nothing to you? Daniel leaned forward, his voice low but unshakable. Because you are not nothing. You are someone who matters, and someone who deserves to live. The chamber fell silent again, but this time it was not heavy. The air felt lighter, as if a small chain had broken between them. Leora looked down at her trembling hands, then slowly placed them on the ground, steadying herself. She whispered, I don't know if I can believe you, but I want to. Daniel gave her a small, reassuring smile. That's enough for now. For the first time since they met, Leora did not look like she was about to run. She still carried fear in her eyes, but the distance between them had begun to close. Above them, faint echoes of the hunters stirred once more. The danger had not passed, but as Daniel rose to his feet and offered her his hand again, she hesitated only a moment before placing hers in his. Her fingers were still shaking, but this time she did not pull away. Together, they stepped out of the chamber and deeper into the unknown tunnels. Two fragile lives bound by a trust that was only beginning to grow. And in the darkness behind them, the hunters followed, relentless as ever. The tunnels grew narrower as Daniel and Leora pressed forward, their footsteps echoing against damp stone. The air was thick and heavy, filled with the smell of earth and dust. Daniel's light flickered across broken walls marked with ancient carvings, reminders of a time before fear ruled this place. Leora stayed close to him now. Her hand brushed against his arm every few steps, no longer pulling away as she once had, but her eyes still darted to the shadows, silver and bright with fear. They're still here, she whispered. I can feel it. They're following. Daniel nodded grimly. He could hear it too, the faint metallic hum of the hunters crawling through the tunnels like predators scenting blood. They were relentless. No matter how far he led Leora, the hunters were always just behind. At last, they reached a wide chamber. The ceiling had collapsed in places, letting streams of pale light spill through cracks above. Old stone pillars stood broken, leaning like tired giants. It looked like a forgotten hall, abandoned for centuries. Daniel stopped, scanning the chamber. "We need to rest here," he said. But Leora shook her head quickly, panic rising in her voice. "No. If they catch us here, there's no way out. We'll be trapped." Daniel studied her trembling figure. He could see exhaustion wearing her down, her legs weak, her breaths short. She could not run forever. He set his weapon down gently, kneeling in front of her. "Leora," he said firmly, "listen to me. I will not let them take you. But if we don't stop, your body will give out, and then it won't matter how hard I fight. You need strength, even for a few minutes." Her lips trembled, and for a moment she looked like a child again, lost and broken. Slowly, she nodded and lowered herself onto a fallen stone. Daniel sat beside her, keeping his weapon ready. The silence stretched. Finally, Leora whispered, "You don't understand. They aren't hunting you. They're hunting me. If I give myself up, if I let them take me, they'll stop." Daniel turned sharply, his eyes burning. "No." She flinched at his voice, but he continued, his tone firm and unyielding. "Don't ever say that again. You think giving up will save us. It won't. They'll take you and they'll kill me anyway. That's what monsters do. They don't stop until everything good is gone." Her silver eyes filled with tears. "If I go with them, at least you'll have a chance to live. Why should you die for me?" Daniel's jaw tightened. He reached out, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Because your life matters just as much as mine. Because no one deserves to be hunted for being touched by kindness. And because if I let you go, I'll lose the very thing that makes me human." Her breath caught in her chest. She stared at him, her tears falling freely now. No one had ever spoken those words to her. No one had ever chosen her over their own safety. The moment was shattered by a sharp, metallic sound. The hunters, their red glow spilled into the chamber from the tunnel behind. Their weapons hummed, filling the air with deadly energy. Daniel stood quickly, weapon raised. "Stay behind me," he ordered. Leora rose, her body trembling, but she stepped forward instead of back. Her voice broke as she cried out, "No, I won't let you die for me." Before Daniel could stop her, she moved into the open, her arms spread wide. Her silver eyes blazed with fear and defiance. The hunters paused. Their red lights flickered, scanning her. One of them spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding stone. Daniel could not understand the words, but he knew the meaning. She was surrendering. "No!" Daniel shouted, running toward her. He grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "Don't do this." Tears streamed down her face. "If they take me, you'll live. That's all I want." Daniel's voice thundered in the chamber. "Living without saving you is not living at all." The hunters raised their weapons, red energy building. Daniel pushed Leora behind a pillar, just as blasts tore through the air, shaking the chamber. Stone exploded, dust filling their lungs. Daniel fired back, his blue bolts cutting through the haze, striking one hunter in the chest. The creature staggered but kept advancing. The battle raged in flashes of red and blue. The air shook with explosions. The floor cracked beneath their feet. Leora cowered behind the pillar, her heart pounding. Every time Daniel fired, she feared it would be his last dot. Finally, Daniel shouted, his voice fierce. "Leora, listen to me. If you give up, they win. If you fight, even if we fall, then we win. Do you understand?" Her silver eyes burned with tears, but she nodded. Something inside her shifted. Something that had been broken for too long. She stood beside him now, no longer running, no longer hiding. Her voice shook, but it carried strength. "Then I'll fight too. Together, they turned toward the hunters, their shadows standing tall against the storm of red light. And though the enemy pressed closer, Daniel knew one thing with certainty: Leora was no longer a girl running from the light. She was someone who had chosen to stand in it, even if it meant sacrifice. The chamber shook as the hunters advanced, their red glow cutting through the dust-filled air. Daniel stood tall, weapon raised, his body tense but unbroken. Beside him, Leora's silver eyes blazed with fear, but also with something new. She was no longer hiding, no longer backing away. The hunters spread out, their weapons humming with deadly energy. One stepped forward, its voice like thunder scraping across stone. Daniel could not understand the words, but he understood the meaning: surrender or die. He tightened his grip on his weapon. "We don't surrender," he muttered. Leora's hand trembled, but she placed it firmly on his arm. "Then we stand together." The hunters raised their staffs. Red light burst from their weapons, blasting across the chamber. Daniel pulled Leora behind a pillar as the stone exploded around them. Shards cut his face, but he ignored the pain. He leaned out, firing back, his blue bolts slamming into the hunter's armor. One staggered, sparks flying. Another roared and pressed forward, firing again. The air became fire and thunder, red and blue clashing in a storm of light. Leora crouched, low, her heart racing. She had always believed she was powerless, that she could only run. But now, watching Daniel stand against monsters for her sake, something inside her cracked open. "Daniel," she shouted over the chaos, "why fight for me? Why risk everything?" He turned his head, his eyes fierce even in the firelight. "Because you're worth it." Her breath caught, tears spilling down her cheeks. Those words struck deeper than any weapon. No one had ever told her she was worth anything. But here he was, proving it with every shot, every step. The hunters pressed closer, their red glow burning brighter. Daniel's weapon overheated, warning lights flashing. He ducked back, his chest heaving, almost out. He muttered. Leora's eyes darted to the glowing carvings on the chamber walls, the ancient symbols pulsing faintly with light. She remembered the stories whispered in secret, the old power hidden in the stones, the energy of her people before it was locked away. "Daniel," she said quickly, pointing to the carvings. "The walls, they still carry energy. If we channel it, maybe?" He looked at her, hope flickering in his eyes. "Can you do it?" She hesitated, fear rising. I don't know. They cast me out. They said I was tainted. I never learned." Daniel placed his hand on her shoulder, firm and steady. "Then believe in yourself. Believe in what they fear. You're stronger than they ever let you know." Her silver eyes widened, his words sinking into her heart. Slowly, she nodded. The hunters closed in. Their weapons glowed red-hot, ready to strike. Daniel raised his gun again, firing the last of its energy. Blue light struck one hunter, sending it crashing against the wall, but the others pressed forward, unstoppable. Leora stepped out from behind the pillar. Her hands trembled, but she pressed them against the glowing carvings. The stone felt warm, alive. She closed her eyes, focusing that hunters turned, red light aiming at her. "No," Daniel shouted, rushing forward to shield her. But then the carvings blazed. A flood of silver light erupted from the walls, surging through the chamber. It was pure, bright, and alive, filling every corner with a radiance that burned like fire, yet felt like hope. The hunters staggered, their armor sizzling. Under the glow, their red eyes flickered violently. Leora cried out as the light poured through her, but she did not let go. She became part of it, her silver eyes glowing brighter than ever. The hunters screamed in metallic voices, their forms breaking apart in the brilliance. One by one, they collapsed, their armor melting into ash, their red glow extinguished. When the light finally faded, silence filled the chamber. Dust drifted slowly through the air. The hunters were gone. Leora collapsed to her knees, her body shaking from exhaustion. Daniel rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. "Leora," called, his voice full of fear. She opened her eyes slowly. The silver glow had dimmed, but her gaze was clear. She whispered faintly, I thought your light was too pure for me, but maybe it was meant to awaken mine." Daniel's chest tightened. He smiled gently, brushing dust from her face. "You were never impure, Leora. You were always the light they feared." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but this time they were not from sorrow. She looked at him with something fragile but powerful hope. "Will they come again?" she asked softly. Daniel's eyes hardened. "Maybe, but we'll be ready. Together." She gave a small nod, leaning against him. Life, she felt safe not because the danger was gone, but because she no longer faced it alone. As they left the ruined chamber, the dawn began to rise above the broken city. Light spilled through the cracks, golden and warm. Leora looked at it, her heart steady. For years, she had feared the human light, believed it was too pure for her. But now, walking beside Daniel, she realized the truth. The light was not something to fear, it was something to share. And as the two of them stepped into the rising sun, side by side, Leora whispered words that carried more hope than fear. Maybe humanity's soul shines not too bright, but just enough to guide even the lost. Daniel smiled, his hand steady on hers. "Then let's make sure the galaxy sees it." Together, they walked into the dawn, no longer the hunted and the protector, but two souls bound by light, strong enough to face the darkness of any world.